Hey everyone, how's it going? My name is Mr. Tom Froese. Today I'm going to answer some questions that you've asked me over the channel and the comments on some of my videos. But before I get into that, just a quick introduction. My name is Mr. Tom Froese. I am an illustrator and a top teacher on Skillshare, where I've helped over 111,000 students unlock the world of commercial illustration. Welcome to the channel. So speaking of Skillshare, just a quick little announcement. I launched a brand new class on Saturday called Drawing is Important. Develop a sketchbook habit in 30 days. So this class is really about motivating and inspiring you to start and hopefully keep going with a habit of drawing every day. I've started drawing every single morning earlier this year, and I've been keeping it going. It's really been game-changing for me, and it's helped me really get back in touch with my own voice and developing and evolving, not staying stuck in one way of thinking or one style and stuff like that. And so far the class has been a real success. We're now edging on to 700 students. The class today just received staff pick status, which is amazing and such a blessing after putting a lot of hard work into that class. And of course, it's so amazing to see all the projects roll in. There must be well over 20, at least 25 projects already. And if that doesn't sound like a lot, my projects really do ask a lot of my students because they're so involved. This one is, like the title says, a 30-day project where you're supposed to create and post every day some kind of drawing that you did in your sketchbook. So anyway, thank you to everyone who has taken that class. Thank you to Skillshare for your support and for that staff pick. And well, it's just another thing to encourage me to keep teaching and to keep going. So anyway, today I wanted to just dip into some of the questions that come in through the channel and give you a chance to hear me answer them here on camera instead of just in the comments here. So why don't we just jump into it? So the first question I'll look at here is from Demili. They say, hey Tom, thanks so much for sharing. And they're talking about my episode called What is the largest print size possible in Procreate? They say, I'm a mixed media artist looking to do large scale prints. I have the latest iPad, so my files I created were 24 by 36 inches in physical dimension with 300 dpi. I want to print on canvas about 36 by 60 inches and also use some layers. So I guess you just want to go bigger. What DPI do you think I could get away with when transporting to Photoshop? So just to answer that question, there's more to the question, but just to answer that question, you can go a lot bigger, and I answer that in another video about how to make large scale prints using Photoshop. I'll leave a link to that in the video description. But basically, whatever iPad can do in terms of layers and resolution and actual like output size, Photoshop can do way more. It's the difference between like one ping pong table's worth of surface area and like 4 tennis courts kind of laid out as a grid, basically, worth of surface area. So it's a lot bigger. If you want to get more into the specifics of that, please check out my video on that topic. If that's your question, that's my answer. The preferred file type, and this is what they ask next, is there a preferred file type to drop it in, PSD, PNG, etc.? If you're transporting to Photoshop, the best file format to use would be the Photoshop file format, which is PSD. So yeah, please, forgive me if I've misunderstood your question, but thank you very much, and I hope that helps. The next comment / question comes in from Avida Nam Blanco de Notas, and they say, such an interesting surprise in response to my news last week that I'm getting an intern and I have a new class on Skillshare. And they say, I thought your next class was going to be the composition one. So yes, I know that I said here previously that my next Skillshare class was going to be about composition. Let's just see what they say. Didn't know about this whole drawing is important Insta and stuff. I can't wait to watch the class and get to know this project better. Thanks, Tom. Love your work. So thank you so much for your comment / question. And yeah, I've been drawing on, like I said, I've been drawing every day basically this whole year and posting it on a Instagram account called Drawing is Important. And that really pushed the idea of a drawing-based class to the top for me. And my hopes of doing one about composition, which I'm looking forward to doing next, really just kind of became secondary. Sometimes I get these waves of inspiration and I just want to ride them while they're still fresh. And it also made sense to get a class out by October 1st, because October, for some reason, I have no idea why this is a month that people get back into drawing more. I don't know what it is about the name of the month, but people love to riff on this name, Inktober, Drawtober. For whatever reason, October is drawing month, and I think that's great. I think every month is drawing month, but anyway, I did want to ride that wave of my inspiration and also just get it out in time for when everyone else is tuned into that frequency of drawing. And so far, I think it's worked out. So anyway, thank you for your question. And I do hope to get that composition class out next. And if you're watching this and you're wondering about illustration composition, like how do you know where to put things on the page when you're working, or if you're wondering about what are the different kinds of compositions illustrators have to work with and stuff like that, any questions you have, please drop them in the comments, and I'd love to just collect those questions for now and use those as fuel for the class and start really answering these questions as directly as I can. So this next question comes in response to my video about planning a large wall mural. So I had a two-part episode on painting my mural back there. And the first part was the sort of planning stage where I got and part of it was using a projector to get my sketch up on the wall and trace it and stuff like that. So this question comes from Rebecca, and she says, "This is what I've always wondered about. I had no idea there are projectors you can hook up to an iPad. Thanks so much for providing this video. When I finally get a place, I'm going to use this as a guide. Thanks so much. Can you by any chance provide a link to a similar type of projector that you used?" So yeah, thank you for your comment / question, Rebecca. And honestly, I had no idea you could hook up a projector to an iPad either, but I happen to have this piece for a workshop that I did in the summer. And it plugs into that little tiny USB-C connector there, and then here you have different kinds of connections, and one of them is HDMI, which will spit it out to a monitor, or screen, or a projector with an HDMI port. So I say in the video that you really just have to, you can use any projector as long as it connects to a HDMI port or whatever connections you have on your device. And so there's no one projector that I would recommend. I found one on Marketplace for 75 bucks. It's an Epson Powerlight, I think. I don't know the exact model number. And it's really just about making sure that you can connect it to your device. And another thing you want to think about is there's something called throw distance. Like a short throw distance means that a projector can be closer to the wall and still project the image really large, versus a long throw distance, meaning you have to go really back far to get a bigger image. The further you take that projector back from the wall, the bigger the image will get. And then a shorter throw just means you don't need to have quite as big of a space to get a larger image in, if that makes sense. So anyway, Rebecca, thank you for your question. I hope your muraling project goes well. So the next question comes in from Louisa, and she is also responding to my Procreate large format video. And she says, "I wonder if you can make a smaller dimension at a larger DPI. Can you then increase the size? My iPad is older. I've been wanting to make posters at 24 by 36 that would be inches, at 300 DPI. And it tells me that the file is too large." So yes, if you're on an older iPad, you're going to be more limited in terms of how big your file can be and how much resolution your files have. So sure, you can have 300 DPI files on your older iPad, but you're going to hit a lower limit to the actual size that iPad can handle compared to newer iPads. That's definitely true. So in a previous episode called Large Format Illustrations in Photoshop, how high of resolution do you need? That was what I called episode 99. So I think I answered Louise's question, but as I'm looking at it now, I may need to clarify a few things. So she's saying, I wonder if you make a smaller dimension at a larger DPI, can you then increase the size? So you're trying to find a loophole basically and cheat the iPad into thinking that it can basically handle larger file sizes than technically it should. So the answer is obviously no. And really all you can do is, let's just not talk about inches or DPI just for a moment. Let's just talk purely about pixels. Pixels are what the computer or your device, your iPad works in. And there's just going to be a maximum number like dimensions, like X by Y, width by height in terms of pixels that your device can work with. Honestly, I really recommend that you go check out my video about large format illustrations in Photoshop. That's where I really explain how resolution and dimensions work and like what is that relationship. But really what it comes down to on any device is you're gonna have a maximum size that you can work with. And basically the more pixels you have to work with, the larger the file and the larger the output size you can make. And that means the larger the resolution you can have on your files, sort of. Because resolution is really just a combination of the output size and the pixel size. So again, I don't want to try and explain it from my head because it gets very abstract. I'm going to get very lost in the weeds here, but I highly recommend you check out that episode and that will explain a lot. So thank you so much for your question, Louisa. I hope that adds some clarity and direction for your question there. Okay, so the next question here comes from Holly Kelly, and she says, my grandson is only 6. He says he wants to be an author and an illustrator. I didn't even know what an illustrator was till I was much older. What can I do to help him begin on that path? He's very creative and loves to tell stories. The illustrator part is where he needs the most help at this point. And I actually responded to Holly here and I just said he's got a long time to figure things out. I don't think a 6-year-old needs to worry about any of these things in terms of like commercial art until they're more like maybe high school aged, because being an illustrator, although it's a distinct art, like illustration is an art form, it's very career oriented. And when you're 6, you shouldn't be thinking about, I mean, when you're 6, you might want to be a fireman or you want to be a dancer or whatever, or an artist, or maybe even an illustrator. But I think when it comes to the stuff that I teach here on YouTube, on Skillshare, and it's so much more oriented around commercial art, like all those questions about making work, not to express ourselves, but to help our clients and their businesses express themselves. So that's just a whole other thing that when you're still a 6-year-old, you should just be enjoying like painting and drawing in and of itself. I mean, maybe I'm seeing things in a too narrow a way, but that's just kind of my take on it. But thank you so much, Holly, for your question. So Buddy Buds asks in response to my video about the 5 things you need to do before even touching a pencil if you want to become an illustrator. They ask, does anyone have experience about formal emails? Like, how do you ask for a certain price? How do you communicate? I have absolutely no idea. I see a lot of videos, but never about this topic. Maybe it's just me, but I really don't know how to write a formal email with a client. They don't know what to say, how much, like how do you talk about how you charge? Then it gets into contracts, stuff like that. I'm just trying to reword the question a little bit more clearly and maybe not doing such a great job of that. But Buddy kind of sums it up and says, how do you know what is a reasonable price and so on? Please don't judge me, but I really need help with this. Thank you. So I responded to Buddy and just said, well, first of all, I go through how I communicate in my emails in my class on Skillshare called the 6 stages of illustration. So if you want to see exactly the kind of examples that I'm talking about, emailing a client, how to talk about price and stuff like that. Not how to price your work, but just how to what language to use when you're talking to your client and setting yourself up kind of for success and in a bit more of a authoritative way. That's what that class 6 stages is about. I do know if you want to know about actually pricing your work and even talking around that, I know Jessica Hish has a workshop and a PDF called The Dark Art of Pricing. Jessica Hish knows what she's talking about. I would definitely go to her for that kind of an answer. I would just say when you're emailing clients, I'm trying to think now about what would my approach be? What has my approach been over the years? Maybe what I would say is this, because I could really get into the weeds about this, is first of all, if you're emailing and you want to seem professional, make sure you're using, proper grammar, typing in proper sentence case. And if you need help with that, or if you're working and emailing in a language that you're not as familiar with, then be sure to use a spell checker and that kind of thing. So there's no shame in that. You shouldn't feel ashamed even for asking this question. I think it's actually a really important question. I praise you for asking it. The longer I'm spending time with this question, I'm realizing what you're really asking is you want to know, how does the email process go? As you're speaking with your client through email, what is that conversation like? So you're not just asking general email advice, like how do you format an email? It's about how do you set up a job from the get-go over email with your client. And so, yeah, I couldn't recommend my own class, the 6 stages of illustration on Skillshare, more highly for this kind of question. And I know this sounds very self-advertising or whatever, but this is why I made the class. The class is meant to help people who are unfamiliar working with clients to see what that process looks like for one illustrator such as myself. So I hope that helps, buddy buds. And I love your username, by the way, it's fun to say. So thank you for your question. So this question comes in response to a video I made called How Do You Decide What to Illustrate When You Don't Know What to Draw? This comes from Laverne Courtney. And they say, and it's not really a question actually, it's more just a remark or a comment, but I wanted to read it. So they say, thank you so much. I was feeling like I wasn't creative enough for drawing from imagination. I'm a portrait painter and fine artist looking to be an illustrator. I have this illustration idol whom I love, but I don't want to copy them. But now that you said it's going to be imitative at first for the technique, to learn, that really clarified things. That really hits home. So thank you so much for your comment, Laverne and Courtney. Yes, when we're trying to develop ourselves as illustrators, we're trying to find our style, especially at first, there's only one path, and that's imitating. We cannot learn how to illustrate without being in some way imitative. We can't find our own voice until we try a bunch of other people's voices to see which hits the closest. And once we figure that out, then we can work with that to make it more our own, if that makes sense. And it won't be just one voice. It will be an amalgamation of a bunch of different voices. We're not just the product of one influence, we're the product of many influences. And I mean, just a really rudimentary example is we come not just from one person as creatures, we come from two people. Two people have to come together, two very different people come together, and then that is what makes us. So we can't possibly be the product of just one influence. If you're imitating, do so with total permission from yourself, and knowing that what you're doing basically is you're allowing yourself to be influenced in the right way, and with the goal of somehow bringing yourself into that more and who you are and all those other influences that you come with. So I hope that helps. Well, maybe what I'll say is I'll just leave you with one of my little slogans that I say is imitate to learn and then innovate to earn. Imitate to learn, innovate to earn. And what I mean is when you're learning, copy whomever you want as much as you want. Imitate them, make a perfect copy of someone else's work, if that's even possible. But just don't make a print of someone else's work that you did and sell it on your shop. Or don't copy someone else's way of illustrating in your client work. If you're making money doing your work, you have to really work harder to bring your own voice to that and your own something to it. Even if it's a little bit imitative, that's okay, but you really have to make an effort to interpret your influences rather than just totally imitate them. So yeah. Okay, so I have time for just one more question. This one comes from Nick Seth Hemingway. And this is in response to my video about 5 things you need to do before even touching a pencil. And they say, thanks for creating this video. It's definitely helped me think through things. Overall, I'm not really sure what I want to do, but I know it falls somewhere between illustration, graphic design, animation, and motion design. I've seen a lot of that kind of work over the past 3 years that have made me really want to dedicate the rest of my future. I'm 35 years old now. However, the 10 things all at once is definitely how I operate, which, as shared, makes it so that I can only advance so far with all those things. So he's really just restating the jack of all trades, master of none idea. So Nick continues, I know that there is a great deal of overlap with the things that I listed, but if you have any additional insight outside of your video regarding the time to commit to one thing, I'd love to know. So thank you so much, Nick, for this question, and I totally hear you. So hopefully you caught that I responded to your question a few weeks ago, and this is what I said. I said, thanks, Nick, for your question about how to commit to one thing. I have 2 thoughts. At first you really have to do a lot of things. You're gonna feel very pulled in different directions at the same time, and this is super normal, and I think it's good and it's important. Use this moment in your life to pay attention to what seems to pull you the strongest. So I guess there's a little bit of a paradox that we encounter at the early stage of our career, where we really find ourselves drawn to a whole bunch of different things, or feel like we have to learn all these things because we don't feel like particularly great at any of them. We don't really know which one's really gonna work out for us. And the paradox is that in order to focus on any one of them, you do have to do all of them. But then at some point you have to focus. And then that means you have to choose one thing at the expense of everything else, at least for a time, to see how it goes. So what I would say, and this is my second point, is that you do have to commit to one thing for a time, but don't feel like you have to commit to any one thing forever. Try committing to one thing just for a time, and that's your best way of really getting a taste for it. And actually, like, my best advice or approach to this is in my class, the style class on Skillshare, where basically I have you commit to one thing just for 26 days or 26 illustrations. And in the project, what you do is you choose a technique. You even choose like a context or an application of illustration, such as like a picture book, or maybe you want to illustrate for a magazine like the New York Times. So you really envision where your illustrations are going. You're that specific, but you're also thinking about, like I said, technique. You're thinking about the type of brushes you're using, or the type of paper you're using or pretending to use in your digital tools and stuff like that. And then you work out that style over the course of 26 pieces. You need that chance to at first be kind of bad, and then be like, oh, if I did something this way, or if I drew the line just a little bit differently there, or if I focused more on illustrating people in this angle rather than that angle, it works out better. So you can't make those kinds of discoveries that only you can make about yourself and your own technique unless you give yourself that chance. So to anyone who, like Nick, is struggling to go past that place where they're generalists and they do a lot of styles, or they do a lot of different things, give yourself a chance to go deep on one of those things, and you're either going to love it or you won't. you're either going to find that there's a wave to surf on, or there's nothing. And so return back to shore and find a different wave, seek that out, or however surfing works. I went surfing once in my life, and I went on my belly because I had a injured groin at the time, and that was only like 4 weeks ago. Anyway, the point being, you want to give yourself that chance, right? You want to give yourself a chance, give that technique a chance, see if there's a wave to ride. You can't worry about whether it's going to work out. All you can know is that when you try it out, that's the best chance of finding out anything at all. So thanks everyone for your questions, and thanks for your comments and questions here on YouTube. I love reading your comments. I don't get enough of your comments, and I would almost beg you for more. Like, I don't know how to get more comments going on this thing, and it's something I'm working on. But anyway, thank you, thank you, thank you, and thank you for watching. Just so you know, like, just for the future, the future of this channel, I know I've been talking about this in some recent vlog posts. I have an intern now, and this intern kind of specializes in YouTube-y stuff, and so I've hired him specifically to help me kind of be a little bit more savvy in that direction. And he's going to help me with things like, you know, how I title and thumbnail my episodes, and he may even help me more on strategy in terms of what kind of content I'm producing here and how do I open up with videos, all that kind of stuff. Everything's up in the air. I'm very much a long form person. I find it hard to say what I'm saying in a few short words that work well on TikTok or Reels, or even now on YouTube. Like, it just feels like everyone just wants everything in a 5-minute or a 90-second blip. And I'm not really good at that, but I also know if I'm going to reach more people, I need to get better at that. I can't complain about the system or the algorithm. I need to either work with it or figure something else out. So what I'm saying is, expect some changes, expect some things to look a little different around here, maybe even expect the way I deliver my content to be a little different. And this is just me kind of being back in the early days. These are my early days of YouTubing and making videos. Think of it as me trying different things to see what sticks and committing to things for a little while and seeing how that goes. So you're actively watching me kind of participate in what Nick is expressing here in the comments. And so that kind of excites me. I like that. I like the fact that there's room to grow. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. My name is Mr. Tom Froese. You can catch my classes that I teach about illustration on tomfroese.com/teaching. If you want to support what I'm doing here on YouTube, the best way to do that is to become a Patreon supporter. It's only $3 a month. I only have $3 a month tiers, and one tier actually. Patreon.com/tomfroese is the URL. And the main perk of that I offer my supporters is monthly drawing sessions. I call them Draw With Me. We meet on Google Meet all together. It's like a big hangout. And I lead you through a guided drawing session. It's a lot of fun, and you get to really connect with other fellow illustrators and just people who love drawing. So anyway, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.